Good morning, everyone. We are starting
Good morning.
late, so we will have to move fast to get through some of this. Yeah, keep your comments to a minimum. No, we'll just go as long as we can. We're starting chapter 20, but before we get into that, I mentioned last week some thoughts that we're needing to consider as we're closing 19 with the death of Christ. In 41-42, now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid. There laid they Jesus, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, for the sepulchre was nigh at hand. So this sepulchre is close enough that it is in keeping with, all right, anybody that dies, is hanged on a tree, needs to be buried within the same day, and it's happening in a fashion, or it's close enough that it is happening in a fashion before the Sabbath comes into play. And we mentioned how that this has its connection to Isaiah chapter 53, specifically verse 9, how that he was crucified as a criminal, but he wasn't buried as one. He's being buried in the cave of a wealthy man. So Isaiah 53:9 makes that prophetic statement that he was buried amongst the wealthy. And how it is that as Jesus left his home in heaven, left his riches and his glory there to come to earth and to live as a man in the flesh without a penny to his name, and that he lived his entire life that way in dependence on God to provide and to take care of him, and that even as he is here at his death, God is taking care of him. Don't have to worry about where you're going to be buried. I'm going to handle that. So as God took care of Jesus and all of these elements, we can take faith, have trust that God will tend to our needs as well. But then these thoughts are things that we need to explore this morning before moving into chapter 20. We need to try to imagine the day that this is happening. Try to place yourselves here as one that has followed Christ up to this point. Hearing the things that he has taught, seeing the miracles that he's performed, just living out his daily life in accordance with and compliance with the will of God. And then throughout all of this, Jesus has been trying to warn them, and he'll be warning us that he's going to die. And even giving some detail, minor detail, into how it's going to happen. One of the closest allies is going to betray him. He's going to be betrayed by the Jews. Scourged, crucified. He's going to die. You're going to be sad. Everybody else is going to rejoice. But the encouragement is you do not give up. He's stated to them, he is going to return. So you do not give up. Believe in me. Trust me. But they are failing to grasp this. And this ties into our sermon from last week and the importance of the evidence. Okay, you're making these claims that this is going to happen. We need to see it happen. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So then, moving past this, now he's been crucified. He is dead. And Joseph of Arimathea comes, Nicodemus come, and they take his body, they put it into a tomb. And then trying to place ourselves here to imagine the feelings, the emotions that would have been had during this time. Trying to imagine what it would have been like to feel alone at this stage. We are at an advantage, I say an advantage, in that we're so far removed from this and that we have the record and we know how this ends. We know what's going to happen. So when we're reading this, are we able to get a full grasp on what is happening here? No, we really can't. And many might think about this time frame, how grand it would be to go back to this point in history and to walk through this life or this time in history with Jesus. But I have to tell you, I'm pretty glad that I was not there to watch all of this unfold in real time. Because I don't know what I would have done at this part. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to watch the crucifixion, but then just be one of the two men on the road to Emmaus. I don't know that my faith would have been strong enough to carry me through those 3 days. And some might say, well, you've gone with him 3 years. What's 3 days? 3 days can be an eternity when you're sitting back and just having to wait for something crucial to happen. But we do know the outcome. And so we do not know the feelings that they felt. And I would argue that that puts us at a disadvantage when it comes to something and studying about the resurrection, like what we're about to study. We talk about this so much that it has become a commonplace topic, like most things throughout the Bible. When we read through this, and especially as John is going to paint the picture in chapter 20 in just a moment, and we're reading about his resurrection, does it bring a thrill to our souls as the resurrection would have done for them? Does it produce within us a surge of emotions? Morning. To have realized and have brought to our view that now death has been conquered. We know that death has been conquered. That with his resurrection, victory is won. As we're going through this study, does the cross do anything for us? Or is it just, yeah, we know this? Do we just take it for granted and not weighing the full impact of what's being presented here? Well, hopefully, with our study of chapter 20, it will help us in this regard. John is going to give records of some of the events that took place on this Lord's Day, on this first day of the week. And the reason that this is done is to let us watch some people and watch the emotions that they are feeling with Jesus in the tomb. But then also to see the transition, to then see the effects on their lives when they learned that the tomb was empty, but not just that the tomb was empty, but that Jesus was alive. And that's what we're needing to grasp with this, is to contemplate, okay, up to this point, death was something that was terrifying, that was fearful, that produced great sadness. But now Jesus is changing all of that. That just as he said, yeah, you'll be sad for a moment, because of death, but death will also bring rejoicing. And we'll see that with Mary, and we'll see that with Peter and John, and we'll see it with the men on the road to Emmaus. John 20, verse 1. First day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene, early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. So here's John, by inspiration, he's setting the scene. When it was yet dark. Not only is that a description of the time of day in which she came, okay, she's there before the sun was up, but you also got to imagine that this would be a pretty good description of what it's like when Christ is gone. It's dark. All throughout John, he's described as being the light of the world. Now that light is gone. And we have that same sentiment when our loved ones die. It's just, okay, it just seems like the world's gotten a little bit darker. Isn't that Lord of the Rings? Similar? Yeah. Seems like Sam said it too. Something about just the world seeming a bit darker. Anyways.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have that sentiment, we have that idea, we have that understanding. Well, that's what's going on here too. Up to this point, God has been amongst them. He's been with them. And these marvelous things are happening. There's joy, there's happiness, there's complacency. And now that's taken away and it's just darkness. She had followed to the cross and watched him die. And she has waited through the Sabbath. And right away, as soon as she could, she came to the tomb. Now, could this not also be a good description of the kind of emotional state that Mary is in that, okay, it's early in the morning when it was yet dark. So with Jewish keeping of time, Sabbath ran from evening till morning. Evening to morning. Could it not be that she is doing this early when it's yet dark because she is going through a restless night? Just can't sleep. And so instead of trying to force yourself to sleep, you just get up and you're going to the tomb as early as you can. And then in going to the tomb, she sees the stone rolled away. And we're going to find that with this realization, there's not happiness. But instead there's worry and there's fret. Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and saith unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. So she does not waste any time. She takes off immediately, panicked and troubled. And the reason for that panic and trouble is because she does not yet understand what's actually happened. She thinks that the body is gone. Okay, somebody came and took him. Why isn't it the understanding, why isn't the statement that, well, he's alive? Because for whatever reason, they're just not able to comprehend and bring it into view that this is even possible.
Which they saw Lazarus.
Exactly. Just a few short chapters ago, and it's just been a matter of days, Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And he wasn't the only one that was raised from the dead. But now it's the situation of, well, okay, yeah, he had the power to do that to others. But who's going to do this for him? He's the one with the power. Now he's dead. Where's that power gone? It's not going anywhere. And so, even when we're contemplating this element about the resurrection, as it's being recorded for us here by John through Mary's personal experience, this is a crucial point about Bible study, and even when it comes down to personal experiences. There are some things we just will not know all the details about. For example, how exactly was it that the world was created? I know that God spoke it into existence. I know that the Father was involved, the Son was involved, and the Holy Spirit was involved. But as far as the detailed elements of how did that happen, I don't know. I can give some perspective, I can give some thoughts on it as to how it could have been, but I don't know. Even going down to different elements inside of the garden as it's recorded for us. The serpent had legs, evidently, because now he's being cursed to crawl on his belly. How is the serpent able to talk? I don't exactly know. Could it be the case that all the animals were actually able to talk? Could have been. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa, what is this? So, I mean, so even with the next one, you know, how exactly did the sun stay still in Joshua chapter 10? I don't know. I don't know how that was done. I just know that it was done. How was Jesus conceived of the Holy Spirit? Matthew chapter 1, verse 20, Luke chapter 1, verse 35. Fully explain that for me in detail. Don't know. How was Jesus resurrected? I don't know the details. We're not given details. And when it comes to this element of the resurrection, there is some mystery about it. By the fact that there was no living soul there when Jesus resurrected to witness it. Nobody saw him come back to life. So there are a lot of things we just don't know about different elements and different topics, and one of those being the resurrection. How does it work? How does it take place? I don't know. It's still a mystery. Not all of it is revealed, but there is still reality of it. And there's evidence to it. It's not just a blind faith that I have in the resurrection. There's evidence. And the evidence is the empty tomb. We know some things, but we're not going to know everything. Even down to, how does baptism, how does washing in water then allow God to take away sin from my soul? I cannot explain all the details of that. And I don't really want to try, because that's where you end up getting yourself into a lot of trouble. But I have faith that that's what God is doing when that action is done. So even with what these individuals are experiencing in real time and what they're able to tell us, they're not able to tell us everything. And that's because God has not revealed it. So thus, that shows, that goes back to the strength and the authority that needs to be placed on the Scriptures and on the Scriptures alone. What God's revealed, then we can share. But what God hasn't revealed, I can't tell you anything about it. But what evidence is there, I'm going to lean on that. And I'm going to be satisfied with it. So with what she has now seen, she goes back or excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Even though she's gone to Peter and John and giving them the information, she's not satisfied with what she's seen, and she's going to end up going back to the tomb. And the reason why that is because that's where her heart is. That's where her affection and her desire is. She's wanting to get answers, and she's wanting to find the body. So verse 3, upon Peter and John hearing this information, Peter therefore went forth and that other disciple and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter and came first to the sepulchre. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen cloths lying, yet went he not in. So we've seen Mary. Now we get a glimpse of the apostles, and specifically Peter and John. You have to wonder, how was their Sabbath? Enduring that entire day and then going into the night before this. And especially with Peter. Because the last time we saw Peter, he was denying Jesus 3 times in the midst of the high priest's palace. And he was close enough to Jesus that Jesus was able to look at him when he denied the 3rd time. And he's gone out weeping.
And also, so there is Joseph and Nicodemus
Yep.
gathering his body, Jesus' body. So Peter was saying actually.
I'm sure there's a lot of regret. But now he comes to the tomb. And the body is gone. Again, here's another one of those mysteries as to why do we have the details that John hit the tomb first? I don't know.
John was right.
Yeah, is it one of those things of, okay, I'm being labeled as the one that Jesus loves, so I need to get there first? I don't know.
He just likes dogging on people.
Yeah, he's very deep. He's being led to a lot of detail in this gospel record. But it's interesting that John hits the tomb first, but he doesn't go in. But he looks and he sees the clothes. All right, just imagine that for a moment. This is a strange scene. Then cometh Simon Peter, following him, went into the sepulchre and seeth the linen clothes lie. The napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. So John stops at the entrance of the tomb, but then Peter barges in. Now, that's pretty typical of Peter. But there's nothing wrong with it. Let's investigate. Well, let's actually go in here and figure out what's going on. Finds the napkin in one spot, the clothes in another. Now, who's heard tell about the Jewish tradition of the folding of the napkin and the significance of that? I heard about it in preaching school, and that supposedly, according to Jewish tradition, that when a meal was being had in the house, the master would sit at the head of the table, a servant would sit close by and watch what's going on so that they can pick up plates and all those kind of things as quickly as possible. And that the tradition was that if the master at the table was done with his plate or done with his meal, he would just crumple up the napkin and set it on the plate, and the servant would know, okay, he's done, I can come and get it. But if the napkin was going to be folded, then that was a sign that I'm stepping away, but I'm coming back. So don't take the plate away. there's no historical evidence that that is actually a tradition. So, for all of you that are taking notes on that point, you're welcome for me wasting your time.
You just need fill time.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But it's just, I mean, it's one of those things that, okay, people come up with stuff, but there actually is no way to prove it. It's an interesting thought, if you could prove it. So setting that to the side, just the fact of, this wasn't done in a rush, if you will. That there was some deliberate action going on here, and that, okay, everything that would have wrapped his body, it's over here, but then here's this napkin that would have covered his head and covered his face, and it's sit over here in a different place. Yes?
Wouldn't that show too, if somebody did steal the body, they're not going to take time to pull the napkin?
Right, exactly. I mean, this is, if we're just coming in to steal this thing, then we're going to take it. And, yeah, not take the time to, and then just on top of that, I mean, a dead body that was in there for 3 days, and you're going to take the time to unwrap it, it's pretty nasty. Yeah, and to take, yeah, it's like, well, let me place this neatly over here. Yeah, you're not going to do that.
Well, it was Jewish tradition.
Well, yeah. And especially with Roman guards that are there around the tomb, you know, I mean, and then the chance that the Jews are going to be watching the tomb, it's like, okay, get in, grab it, get out. So yeah, the very fact that you're leaving behind the wrapping, okay, this is strange. What is going on here? So Peter goes in, then went and also that other disciple which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. For as yet they knew not the scripture, that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went away again unto their own home. Okay, the tomb is empty. He's risen. But they do not fully perceive or understand. He saw and believed. Well, believed what? Well, it's not a full believing, because verse 9 says that he didn't fully believe. As yet they knew not the scripture, that he must rise again from the dead. But something's going on there. Something is swirling and something is working.
We're reading Mark just to do it. So it's the Mount of Transfiguration when they're coming down. And Jesus is saying, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So what is it that they're not grasping the whole time? Like, why? Like, the whole time they're talking about it, even when the brothers come, James, John, come to ask to sit it left and right. It's like, can you do this? I'm going to do this. What is it? Physical, spiritual? What are they thinking? Because they still think the physical kingdom's coming. What is going on that they don't like? And then here it is, and they're like totally shocked as if he never said it.
Yeah.
Is that something we don't know? What's going through their minds? We'll never know.
Well, I mean,
Let me add this, because they also are grieved when he says those things. I'm going to die.
yeah.
They're also, they're grieved in their heart. So they believe something about it, but yet now they're here, they're like, whoa, wait, what? I'm confused with them.
Is it still the Jewish tradition that the man of battle that they're going to have another David? It's still there.
I can see it being a combination of those two things. So where Jordan was saying that, okay, they, even up to his ascension, they're still having a problem with the kingdom. Right before he ascends, they ask, okay, now are you going to reestablish the kingdom in Israel? And it's just like, well, didn't I say I was going to do that? And here you are questioning it. And his response is, not for you to know the times nor the seasons of what God's going to do, but it was going to happen just within a short time. And so even with that, we could have the tendency of just looking at this too harshly, to where, like that question that they're asking in Acts chapter 1, is that really a bad question? Is it really wrong for them to ask that? No. Again, put yourself there. Don't, here we are, almost 2,000 years removed. We've studied through this, read through this. We know how the timeline is going to play out. But you put yourself there and you are having to watch it unfold. Yeah, you're going to have questions. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have doubt, per se. You say this is going to happen, it hasn't happened yet. So let me ask a question. All right, good. And even with this, to be weary of it. Like we said about Thomas. Everybody wants to dog Thomas. He has the right attitude. He has the right perspective on this. You got to be careful. You got to watch out. Even to the degree of the apostles saying it. Isn't it possible they could be deceived? Didn't Jesus warn that in Matthew 24? That even to the elect, they might be deceived? All right. So as far as this just being a total depletion of their faith and trust and confidence, I don't think we can go that far. Because as it's stated here, there's something that they are grasping onto. They've not fully just given up on him as far as him claiming who he is. So it's working in the balance of just what's going on in real time and what they're feeling. And even as we get into Mary here in just a moment, and she has an encounter with Jesus, Jesus doesn't rebuke her or correct her because of how she's feeling or what she even says to him. And I would argue because it's one of these times of extreme grief. It's like the situation with Job. Job says a good bit that we might stand back in our situation not being there and say, well, why would he say that? But yet the record says he did not speak unadvisedly with his lips. He didn't sin. And it's because he's in grief. And he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know that God has given Satan a leash to do these things, and his perspective is, well, God is in control, and if he's the one doing this, then all right, so be it. And that I would put the apostles and everybody else at this stage in that same position with Job. Okay, we have promises, we have things that Jesus has taught, but it's just we are in the thick of this and we don't have any idea what's going on. So there's patience, there's mercy throughout that. And I would argue that to some degree, that's what we should be giving to ourselves in trying to work through and figure out certain things as we grow in our faith. That, we want to try to get a handle on and figure things out as quickly as we can. And even in this situation, that's what is happening. Jesus does not waste any time in setting the record straight with them. But it is still the situation of, okay, you have to go through this and try to figure this out on your own so that this can be your faith and not just something that's being given to you. It is their growth. We're watching the growth process right here. Experience. And yeah, we can look at this and just say, well, how couldn't they see it? How couldn't they get it? Like I said, I don't know that I would have gotten it. And I like to think I'm a pretty smart guy. But again, you have to consider, okay, this, even though he's raised people from the dead, now he's talking about himself being raised up. Okay, this is, to a degree, this is a horse of a different color that we're talking about here. So we need to see what happens.
So just a few days earlier, Jesus is berating them and basically saying, if you don't have this great love and change your attitude, you're not going to be the church that I need you to.
Yeah.
And so when we've all talked about conversion and things, and the things that need to happen just even on our level, and that shock value, this is a huge shock value for them to change every single thing that they've ever known. And you said they don't really know what's going on, but maybe this is what needs to happen for their benefit so that they can move forward and start the church.
Well, definitely, because even in that chapter 13, Jesus uses the example, what is the great example of one's love for somebody else?
Give your life.
That you die for them. So yeah, they need to go through this. And they need to watch this unfold so that they can comprehend what is being said. It's not just the fact of, well, yeah, I'm teaching you this. No, I'm going to do it for you. So he's leading by example. And being able to go through this experience, feeling all the things that they're feeling, and then that puts them in a perfect position to then be able to preach and teach to the Jews on the day of Pentecost and to empathize with them. And to be able to help them along in their growth. It's Matthew 5, and blessed are the merciful, for you will receive mercy. The ones that do not respect and appreciate mercy, they're not going to give it to others. So how was it that the apostles could then turn around and look at these Jews and say, you killed him, but we want to help you? It's because of this. Everything that they're enduring right here is preparing them to be in the proper place and mindset of leadership that, okay, we're going to serve you, we're going to help you, we're going to minister to you because we know what it's like to be in the dark and having to be led to the light. So yeah, it's definitely needed. Any other thoughts? Comments? All right, verse 11. Wait, let me check my notes, make sure I got everything. All right, so going to the question, what's fully going through their mind? I don't know. But they go home and they're bewildered. They're confused. Something unusual has happened. Tomb is empty. Here's the clothes, but the full meaning of it's not there yet. And John gives vivid illustration for us to be sure that the tomb was empty. Things are established by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. You've got Mary, now you have Peter and John, but you have a 4th one, in that the Holy Spirit is the one giving this by revelation. So the Holy Spirit's a witness to this as well. Yes? Yeah. Gave it a look. Not you. Rachel.
She's good at that.
Figure out who the 4th person was.
Okay. And this is important even I mean, because, as we have in Matthew's record, the enemy is going to come along, and they tried to say back then, and they still try to say it today, well, he didn't really rise. But just like what Mary is thinking, he was stolen. But John, through this account, and with the witnesses that we have, is assuring our faith, making it steadfast. The one that's bearing this record saw these things, and you know that his record is true. So Peter and John leave, but Mary, she just cannot walk away. She stays behind. Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping. Now, again, we would look at this and we would question, why are you crying? Again, we know how this ends. We know how this plays out. She doesn't. Put yourself here. What would you be doing? I'm sure that we would be just as panicked and just as frightened, trying to figure out what is happening. She's weeping. As she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre. So, again, just trying to figure this out. She's investigating. And see the two angels in whites sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. They say unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? She said unto them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. Why isn't it instead the thought, well, he must have risen like he said he was? I don't know. But here's what's going through her mind. She's still thinking somebody came and stole him. Now it's interesting also that with this account, the angel showing up and the reaction that Mary has. Because majority of the time throughout Scripture, when an angel shows up, what's the emotion?
Fear.
Fear. But there's no mention of her becoming fearful or becoming afraid.
Or realizing that they're angels.
Yeah, or even that. Why do you think that would be? She's grieving.
Irrational.
She's, without being disrespectful, she's out of her mind. She's not behaving normally. That's not a problem. So this is possibly an expression of the deep grief that she is in. This weeping that we have here, this isn't just, okay, yeah, I'm sad and I'm crying. It's like an overreaction over here, if you've seen Jackson, in one of his moments of pain and grieving. There would be wailing that she's doing. Just an expression, a showing of how much she has lost at this point and the suffering that she's enduring. Never mind that angels are here. Her mind is just stuck on, my Lord is gone. And I don't know what's happened, and that wrecked her. Got a thought?
I was just thinking that in addition to that, she just stood at the bottom of his cross and watched him die.
Right. What a traumatic experience. And it's just, it's one thing after another. The trial, the crucifixion, now his burial, and he's gone. I mean, it's just, one big hit after another. And you're just out of your wits. No idea what's going on.
I'm just thinking though, all the other times that it's recorded that Jesus tried to sleep on the boat and the waves were crashing down and the apostles are coming trying to wake him up. Do you think he finally got the rest that he needed?
For 3 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
In paradise?
yeah, I mean that's what death ends up being described as. We are laboring and we're longing for rest.
But my point is, like, he woke up on his own time. It wasn't the apostles coming up shaking him.
Oh
It was-
yeah. Not disturbing him.
Yeah.
That was probably the worst thing.
Having to come back.
Yeah, that's the true levels coming back.
Right,
Samuel,
yeah.
why are you doing this?
Yeah, no joke. I mean, Lazarus, for that matter, being on the other side, Abraham's bosom, taken care of, it's like, I got to come back. How difficult that would have been. But yeah, he did come back. So then, it's like you have all of this taking place. Verse 14, when she had thus said, she turned herself back, saw Jesus standing, and knew not that it was Jesus. Again, more mystery. We're going to read in just a short little bit how that he's going to enter a room not using a door. Now here it is, hiding his identity. But we know that he still has the nail prints. That also is going to be talked about in this chapter. So what's going on here that she turned around, saw him, but she didn't know it was him? I don't know. I mean, how was it in Matthew 17 at the Mount Transfiguration? You have some of the apostles there, and they see Jesus with Moses and Elijah. How did they know it was Moses and Elijah? But now she doesn't know that it's Jesus. I don't have the answers for that. Other than, in Matthew 17, there was some kind of distinguishing factors with the bodies that they had, Moses and Elijah, that they knew it was them. Name tags, yeah, it could be.
They were Mormon.
Right, yeah. White shirt, tie, maybe a bicycle. Yeah, so what's going on here? I don't know. And that even when Jesus in turn talks to her, verse 15, Jesus said unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? She's supposing him to be the gardener. So here's some insight into what's going on in Mary's head. Said, huh?
Came back as a Mexican.
Yeah, Jesus. Saith unto him, Sir, if thou have borne him, hence tell me where thou hast laid him, and I will take him away. She thinks he's the gardener and that he's the one that took the body. If you've taken him, give him to me, and I'll take it. Why does she not recognize him? I don't know. Blinded by grief, in such a panic and hysteria that she just does not realize who it is that's in front of her? Could be. The, not understanding correctly the scriptures, not understanding and piecing everything, tying everything together. That can be a blinding factor for people. But then we have verse 16. Jesus saith unto her, Mary. She turned herself and saith unto him, Rabboni, which is to say, Master. So there was something about the tone and the sound of his voice that was able to identify him. In him calling her by name, she then knows who it is. Now that's interesting because that has some familiar sound to something that Jesus has already talked about.
The shepherd and the sheep will know him by his voice.
Okay, it's John 10, verse 3. To him, the good shepherd, the porter openeth, the sheep hear his voice, he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. Verse 14, I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. Verse 27. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Could this have some connection? Possibly.
More evidence for this than the napkin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure. So whatever the situation is here, this ends up being the factor that wakes up her realization, brings her out of her grief, and to bring her into recognition of, okay, you're alive. And that she would turn herself around and say, Master. But then it's not only a factor of her turning around and calling him Master, but then verse 17, Jesus saith unto her, Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren, and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. So she takes it a step further. In recognizing and expressing joy and relief with her mouth and calling him Master, but then she goes into a situation of wanting to touch. Now, this is a passage of Scripture that has a history of causing problems, or not really problems, but misunderstanding on the part of what's being discussed and what's being described here. So, when you're reading this, and I think you and I have actually talked about this in the past, what's the common thought and common tendency in teaching about this verse?
That his body's not ready or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, touch me not, for I've not yet ascended to my Father, and just, oh, well, she, like, because he's not ascended for whatever reason, she's not able to touch, or nobody's able to touch Jesus at this point. But is that really what this is? Okay, in the same chapter, he's going to end up saying to Thomas, all right, here are the prints. Here's where they place the nails. Put your fingers in there. Well, but even then, would that be a problem? Is it just the fact that Jesus is saying, just don't touch me at all?
Must not be letting him go. Not gripping on because she's just in that state of grief. And now it's, you know, it's, oh, don't go. It's like, hey, calm down, I'm not going yet.
So John 20:27, Jesus is going to say to Thomas, reach hither thy finger and behold my hand. So if you're allowing one person to touch in this regard, then you would be allowing the person to touch in any other regard. So what's taking place here is that Mary is wanting to lay hold on him and not let go. She's wanting to keep him. She's wanting to cling to him, cleave to him. But Jesus is stating, no, you can't hold on to me like this.
It's like the tabernacles.
Huh?
It's like the tabernacle. Let's just stay here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Matthew 17, Peter's saying, well, let's build 3 tabernacles. It's good for us to be here, so let's build 3 tabernacles and you know what, Jesus, let's just stay up here on this mountain. Nope, can't do that. He has to leave again. Now, you just think about that. We've lost you once, and now here you are. I'm holding on to you, and I'm not letting go. And Jesus says, can't do that. I'm not going to stay here. And he's illustrating how it is, okay, you're going to have me. It's just not going to be physical. I mean, everything with John 14, 15, 16 and the promise of sending the Comforter is all based upon him leaving. It is necessary. It's essential that I go. Well, again, no, we want you to stay. Nope, you need me to go. Because that's going to bring another layer of growth and experience into this that if I stay with you, you're not going to have. So what's being further illustrated by the things that have transpired is that the relationship is now different. What is now being produced through His work, the relationship that they're now sharing is not just purely physical, but now it's a spiritual relationship that they hold. Notice the terms in here. Touch me not, for I'm not ascended to my Father. Okay, that's what's been said throughout the majority of this record. He is the Son of God. That is His Father. He's been saying to the Jews, it's not your Father. But then notice the change in description in that relationship that He says about the disciples. But go to my brethren. Doesn't call them disciples. Calls them brothers. Here they are now brethren, but not of the flesh. But through that spiritual connection. We're not just brethren through Abraham. We're not just brethren because, we're Jews in the flesh. But we are that true Jew that is of the heart. Just very quickly, Hebrews chapter 2 gives us a really good overview and a summation of pretty much everything that's talked about throughout John's record. In describing Jesus, the Hebrew writer says, Hebrews 2 and verse 5, "For unto the angels hath He not put in subjection the world to come, whereof we speak. But one in a certain place testified, saying, What is man that thou art mindful of him, or the son of man that thou visitest him? Thou madest him," Jesus, "a little lower than the angels. Thou crownest him with glory and honor, and didst set him over," referencing the man in creation. "Thou madest him a little lower than the angels. Thou crownest him with glory and honor, and didst set him over the works of thy hands." Now, this is not describing necessarily a hierarchy between man and angels. But this is simply describing the fact that you place them on earth. Because in the grand scheme of things, in the way that we are created, in the way that we're made, we're created in the image of God. That's not said of angels. So if we're talking about hierarchy here, there is some superiority that we would have to the relation of angels. We're made different from them. Verse 8, "Thou hast put all things in subjection under His feet." I'm getting ahead of myself and all over the place. In contrasting Jesus between the angels. Though He was put here on earth, made a little lower than the angels, yet He was being crowned with glory, and thus put all things in subjection under His feet. For in that He put all in subjection under Him, He left nothing that is not put under Him. But now we see not yet all things put under Him. But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that He by the grace of God should taste death for every man. For it became Him for whom all are all things, and by whom are all things, and bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through suffering. So here's the cross, here's His death, here's His resurrection. What has that done for us? Bringing sons, many sons unto glory. We're not just disciples. We're not just servants. We are sons. For both He that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all one. For which cause He, Jesus, is not ashamed to call them brethren. Why brethren? Because he took on the nature of man. He did not come as an angel, but he came as the seed of Abraham, in the flesh, a Jew. He lived and he suffered, that through the cross and through the resurrection, God could then be our Father. And Jesus our brother. That we are adopted into that family. Saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren, in the midst of the church will I sing praise unto thee. And again I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children which God hath given me. Here's that change in relationship. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is, the devil. Remember back in John 13 and 14, Jesus made reference to the fact that with his crucifixion, the prince of this world would be judged. He overcame. He showed that death has no power, has no ability to conquer. He overcame that and delivered them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore, in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that he himself has suffered, being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted. Why did it have to play out the way that it did? Here's the summation. Here's why it's necessary. It behooved him, was necessary and essential, that he be made like his brethren. He's one of us. And that he endured all of that, so that not just being brethren through Abraham in the flesh, but that seed of Abraham, that's according to the promise. And so that we could all share in that relationship together. So that, as the Hebrew writer is going to describe later, how that it is possible for us to come boldly before the throne of God. If we were just servants and we were disciples, we couldn't do that. But now that we're children, now that we are sons and daughters, we share in that relationship that Jesus shared with the Father. Now, what confidence and what hope and what comfort that ought to bring to us. That not only we share in that relationship, but then also we have such a merciful and faithful high priest. That there's somebody there in heaven that knows what it's like to be us and to speak on our behalf. And to know that that's still going on. As John is going to conclude his gospel record, these things are being written so that you might believe Okay, I didn't see these things happen. I wasn't there to experience all of this. But you know what? I can have trust and full assurance and confidence of what's being talked about and what's being promised. Because the one that bare record wrote it, and it's true.
When Jen was talking earlier, why couldn't you understand it? Well, here's pretty much the whole chapter of Hebrews, which explains what's happened in the changing relationship. And they didn't, it's not told to us that they knew that specifically at that time. You're reading, this chapter and all the other chapters in the epistles were what Jesus was talking to them about for those 40 days of walking around as it's coming up.
Yeah.
But this is significant, and they would have known that and understood it. That's why they didn't have that.
And even for them to be so close to these events and still be willing to walk away. And that just says something about human nature. The doubt that comes in, the deception that was already taking place in the first century to try to lead people away. We are being shown, contrary to what we heard last night from what's-his-face from Michigan, this is not a guaranteed thing that you are going to make it. Because I shouldn't say all the epistles, majority of the epistles are being written to congregations to encourage them to not give up. Why would you be wanting to give up? I mean, he was just crucified. He just resurrected. He showed himself to 500 other people. And you're in danger of walking away so soon? I mean, that's how the Galatian letter opens. I'm amazed that this is happening. That's just the way people are. And even Christians. So yeah, again, it's what Paul says in Romans about not thinking of ourselves more highly than we ought to. And we are in a big position of danger of doing that. Because here we are, all this time removed, we've had this Bible recorded for us, and it's been in existence for all this time, and we've got all these wise men that have expounded on the Scriptures, and it's just, look at how high we're standing. And it's just, that puts us at a greater danger than even they had. So it is a continuous point and a continuous theme of take heed for those who think they stand, lest you fall. We've got to be watchful. We've got to be on guard. So any other thoughts, comments? We'll end there with that look at the Hebrew letter, and we'll pick back up in 18.
With the angel thing and how we're created in the image of God, but yet the angels, it talks about in 2 Thessalonians, Jesus is going to come back with the angels, and like this power is with them. And then every time you see it pretty much in the Bible, when the angels come, as we were talking, they fear this being that's in front of them. There's all these things. There's power there. There's something there about the angels that have this power to them. Or they have something to them where people are afraid of them, but yet we're somehow greater than them. But then we have the apostles and the disciples that were there, and then we're told that we're greater than them through our faith, all this stuff. And then it just keeps going back. It seems like the low man on the totem pole is the one that's greater than not our king, but the one that's the closest to the king.
Yeah.
And it's just by faith, that's how it works. It's just this weird, it's this backwards thinking, because we always think the greatest is the President of the United States.
Yeah.
The greatest is the one sitting there on the right hand of God. But then it's the lowly person.
It's we the people.
Yeah, it's the rich man and Lazarus. It's Lazarus that's the one that's comforted and the one that God blesses and the one that's better than the rich man.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to say that it's strange to think that way because it's the opposite of how we think.
Yeah. And even for Jesus in John's record, to quote from the Psalms, where the psalmist says, "Ye are gods." And that's even what we talked about with our tent meeting and the pride of Eve and of Adam, for that matter, in that it's easy to understand how she could be deceived into thinking the way that she did about, well, you'll be given the knowledge of God. Well, okay, that makes sense. Why shouldn't I have this knowledge if I'm actually made in His image? You know, we share in that character trait with God, that we're made in His image. Well, if I'm made in His image, then why can't I have that knowledge? Well, just because you're made in the image doesn't mean that you actually are the thing. So there's still, there is that balancing that's having to take place within that. And that, yeah, like you're saying, that even though we're placed here on this planet and we're placed here on this earth, does not necessarily mean that we're the low man. That, just as what we read with the Hebrew writer, the psalmist said, "Who is man that you're mindful of him?" Well, that shows you're pretty special. For you to just be this thing made out of dust, but yet God is so interested in you, it's pretty special. So, yeah.
Well, then you can take and add on to that from Jeremiah, where I moved you before I
Ah,
moved you.
yeah. 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 Okay, anything else? Alrighty, we will stop.